Calling the briefing with legislative district meeting to order for Thursday, July 13th. Since we have a smaller group, I want to go around the room and just do introductions. Let's start with our Zoom.
You have to call on them.
I am trying to figure out. Brandy Keith.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brandy Keith with the South Coast Air Quality Management. I'm part of the Geographic Outreach team.
Rob. You're muted. You're still muted.
You're still
muted. There you go.
Great. Sorry. I thought I did that about 6 times. All right. So anyway, my name's Rob Seaman. I'm a city council member for the city of Hermosa Beach.
Jimmy? Jimmy, go. You're muted.
Hi, Jimmy Gao with Assembly Member Almer Asuchi's district office.
Jeanette?
Hi, good morning. Jeanette Christian, Senator Feinstein's office.
Jeff?
Good morning, all. Jeff Kiernan with the League of California Cities.
John?
Good morning, everyone. John Cruikshank, Mayor Pro Tem, Rancho Palos Verdes.
Becky?
Becky Chang with Assembly Member Almer Asuchi. I'm here joined by Jimmy and also my intern, Meghna Nair, and I invited another one. She's hopping on, so thank you.
You brought a group with you, okay.
Things changed. Okay.
Carlos?
Good morning, Carlos Weezar, Management Associate with the City of Torrance City Manager's Office.
Karen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Calderon. I'm a field representative for Congressman Ted Lieu, and one of our interns, Ben, is going to be joining us a little bit later as well.
Madeline?
Hey, it's Madeline from the Office of Congressman Vargon. I'm here on behalf of Casey Hervey.
Bill?
Bill Upoff, Mayor Pro Tem of Lomita.
And Zelma?
I think she's still connected.
She's still connecting. Megan?
Meghna, do you want to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Hi, everybody. My name is Meghna Nair, and I'm an intern with the Office of Assembly Member Almer Asuchi.
And I see the other two are still bubbling, so they're not connected as of yet. Oh, Olena is. You finally in? You're muted.
I'm in, thank you.
And we'll come back to Zelma. She's still not audio connected. Ian?
My name is Ian May. I am with the no worries. I'm with the County Assessor's Office, brand new field deputy for the South Bay and coastal cities. Ronson Chu, Senior Project Manager for Homeless Services with the South Bay Cities Council of Governments.
Rodney Tanaka, Councilmember City Gardena, first vice of the COG.
Sergio Carrillo in the office of the LA City Councilmember Tim McCosker.
Good morning, everyone. Ted Olguin, Chief of Staff for LA County Assessor Jeff Frank.
Tom Lasser, retired soldier, South Bay Aerospace Alliance, which is the support group for Los Angeles Air Force Base.
Jackie Babbitt, Executive Director of the COG.
Cedric Hicks, the Chair of the South Bay COG, Councilman for the City of Carson.
And over in the corner, David is here with the COG.
And I see Zelma still is not connected audio, but we know she's here. Okay, we're going here with our meeting to look at our first up is the Ronson Jackie to address our homeless count and observation for the South Bay area.
Right. I looked at the updates of the COG, and a lot of the things I said in May are still in this pretty much in the same status. But the one thing that I thought would be really informative for the people at this meeting was to hear Ronson talk about his observations on the homeless count, which of course gets so much publicity, and we work so hard on throughout the year. So I'm going to turn this over to Ronson, who will talk about the homeless count and the South Bay.
Great, thanks, Jackie, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, so we made some 2 big observations, and I think that's the impetus for this is to kind of share with you those 2 big observations. What I'm not going to do is regurgitate the lost presentation. If that's on their website, you can easily find that. But basically, what has been reported is LA County increased by 9.2% year over year, LA City 10.2% year over year, and South Bay 45.7% year over year. That number just, really strikes out at you. It's such a huge jump. And we see these fluctuations, like for example, in Long Beach last year, they increased by 62%, but now they were only increasing by 4.6%. So there's these huge year over year fluctuations. And just if you recall last year, we decreased by 2.5%. What happened this year is LAHSA did not release data of the 87 cities like they usually do this year. And part of the reason is because this year there was just a lot more uncomfortableness about the imprecise nature of when they drilled down to the city level. There was always this kind of imprecise nature of that in prior years, but I think this year, because of the fluctuations that we saw, there was just more uncomfort over that, and so they're not releasing that data this year. So this gets into kind of our first observation, right? The first observation is there's 3 spas that spiked more than any other spas, and the numbers really just jump out at you. If you look at spa 5, 7, and 8, we all basically started off with about the same homeless count numbers in 2022, around 4,500. And then you can see all 3 of us spiked up to 6,000, close to 7,000, 6,500 people. Very odd kind of like grouping of all our 3 spas. And just if you don't know what the spa boundaries are, spa 5 is the west side, which includes Santa Monica, Culver City. I think you go all the way west through like the mid Wilshire area. And then spa 8, of course, is us in the South Bay, and then spa 7 is the gateway cities. I was trying to think of for a long time, what do our spas have in common that would cause this kind of a shift together? And I couldn't think of anything, but over the 4th of July weekend, kind of had an aha moment. And I realized, I remember back in January when we did this count, our 3 spas did the count on the same night. So, coincidentally, our 3 spas were the 3 spas that had the highest increases. And what happened that night was, and this is in the LAHSA press release in January, on night 2 of the homeless count, which is Wednesday, January 25th, the near-term real-time synchronization between LAHSA headquarters and the site coordinators, it basically went out between 9:30 and 11 p.m. And those was the prime time hours of when the data was coming in and we were submitting it to LAHSA. So my thinking is what might have happened is because there was downtime, and I was the Redondo Beach coordinator, so I know this, is that when we were trying to submit during those hours, we couldn't submit. And so we were pressing submit multiple times, but we kept getting the spinning circle of death. And so this might have caused double counting. Not 100% sure, but that's the theory. And so basically what we're saying is that it can't be a coincidence that the 3 spas that did the count on the same night were also the 3 spas that saw the biggest spikes. I mean, that has to be a statistical anomaly. So we've sent this to LAHSA. We still haven't been contacted back, but we want them to investigate this. Because, all 3 of our spas, I can say, I'm sure they'll even say this, is we worked really hard to solve our homelessness situations. And then on top of that, we've had thousands of volunteers on the night of the count. So we have to get these numbers right. It does us disservice to the volunteers and to the hard work that we're putting in. So we want to make sure the numbers are better reflective of the count results. And so we are kind of contesting the results in these 3 spas. So then just moving on.
I was gonna add something. We have asked LAHSA for a response to this, and we haven't heard anything. If any of your offices would like to write to LAHSA and say, this seems like an anomaly, can you please explore it? That might be helpful because we don't think that they're paying attention, and we really would like to get a response.
All right. With the big spike in the spa level, what we're seeing at the city level, based on the information that we were able to glean from our meetings with LAHSA prior to the release, was that our cities of our core cities, our 15 core cities.
Can we move her?
Oh. Yeah, sorry, you'll see it's a 1.1% decline. So, these are 15 of our core cities, our incorporated cities, I should say, Torrance, Inglewood, Redondo Beach, Carson, Gardena, cities like that. We saw 1.1% decline. So we're bucking the trend still, even with this statistical anomaly, which is good to see. However, you know, I would qualify that, you know, anecdotally in 2023, it's been a tough year. You know, we're seeing an increase in number of phone calls from families, from couples, from seniors. We are seeing the effects of the pandemic relief on our lower income folks, and they're being stretched, as well as the inflation effect, right? So people are being pushed in terms of their purse strings. We didn't get data for the CD15 portion. We didn't get data for unincorporated county, so we don't know. But if our SPA 8 number is 45.7%, that implies in these unincorporated and CD15 areas there was a massive jump. So again, those numbers just seem they just seem a little bit off. So yeah, so that's that side. The other takeaway here is that you know what LAHSA does what we do on the count is we count cars, vans, and RVs, but we don't count the people inside the cars, vans, and RVs. That's the part that's always been very contentious about the homeless count, is that LAHSA then applies a multiplier to the cars, vans, and RVs. And the multiplier is driven by a demographic survey that LAHSA does later on. And so what happened this year is SPA 8 saw a jump in the multiplier. So what that means is it implies that we're seeing more people in cars than we used to. So in prior years, we might have saw one person in the car, but this year LAHSA is seeing 2 or 3 people. So that implies maybe there's more families, more couples that are struggling and that are falling into homelessness. So you can see how our multiplier is compared to the other SPAs in these categories. One interesting note, in SPA 1, they saw less than 1 person in the car. That's a really weird result, but just wanted to point that out. I'm sure there's a statistical explanation for that. Yeah, maybe 1 person owns 2 cars. I don't know. So just wanted to call that out. Also compared to prior years, our multiplier jumped as well. So in 2022, the multiplier of cars was 1.09. You saw this huge jump of 1.67. So this increase in the multiplier had a 10% effect on our count results. So that is, if we had used the 2022 multiplier, we would have saw a 10% decrease in the homeless count in our South Bay City. But you know, we're not saying that our multiplier is wrong or not. We're just saying that because we're seeing more people in cars, that's one of the primary reasons that we're having an increase in the homelessness numbers. And then just to finish up, just some other notes, just in terms of the raw counts, the South Bay City's unsheltered population has declined 15%. So that's really good news. That means we're sheltering more people in the South Bay as opposed to them being out in the streets. And then even the number of vehicles has decreased by 7%. So our raw count is actually doing pretty well in terms of the numbers going down. So just quickly, the takeaways, the multipliers imply that we're seeing increased number of couples and families experiencing homelessness. SPA 5, 7, and 8 curiously did the count in the same night and curiously all saw the largest increases. We know that the app went down between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. And then there's some larger fluctuations at the city level. So we support LAHSA's decision not to release city level data until the numbers can be verified. And then just wanted to note too, in case you aren't familiar, the homeless count had traditionally been paper and pencil up till 2022. 2022 was the first year that we went to an app-based count. That is, volunteers had to download an app and do the count on the app. And then in 2023, they scrapped the 2022 app and did an entirely new app. So in 2 straight years, we had to train up on a new app. So we think like all these changes could have also caused the levels of fluctuations that we are seeing.
So if anybody has any questions, we just thought this was that you see a number in the newspaper, but there's so much behind that number. And we wanted to make sure that you understand at least some of the any questions.
I can say I appreciate it. I mean, I know that we don't count the people in the cars as I've been out in the homeless count, but I didn't understand the multiplier changes.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that the raw, if we use the 2002 multiplier, we actually had a 10% reduction. That painted a good picture. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've seen the CD15 numbers yet or not. We haven't seen it yet. And so we're kind of curious to know what the CD15.
We had an increase, but I don't remember Off the top of my head, exact numbers.
Yeah.
But for the record, we just came in office in December and the numbers were taken in January.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Our office is also happy to reach out to CD15 and see if they're willing to, share that data as well.
We can share that information. Yeah. Well, I'll share it with you, Ron. I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, yes, Rob Seaman. Quick question. You, on one of your slides there, it mentioned that the city data, individual city data is not posted because it's inaccurate at this point and they're trying to sort it out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't sure if they're going to release it, but typically there, in any given year, there's quite a lot of people, suggesting to make changes to LAHSA, and typically they don't really make too many major changes. So I wouldn't expect them to make a lot of changes at the city level, but we are trying to get them to take a look at at least the SPA level number and change that.
No,
So I wouldn't hold your breath on getting the city data is basically what I'm saying.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, but
We can definitely talk offline with different cities to kind of look at some of the data that we've seen in your city. So that's always available.
yeah, and I appreciate that. And I understand, I'm from Hermosa Beach, where 1 square mile grouped in with SPA 5 and South Bay. Of course, there's an enormous difference between, let's say, Torrance and Hermosa, obviously. So for me to come back to Hermosa and report something about the number of unhoused people, it would be helpful if I could break at least some information out about Hermosa in particular. And then the other question I had is that you say the number of housed homeless is gone up, and you consider housed people living in cars and tents. Is that correct?
No, what we're saying is the number of unsheltered has gone down. And then the number of people that are living in cars and tents. So so let's say you count 1 car this year versus last year, there are more people in that car this year.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I said unhoused, but I meant unsheltered. So sheltered people are considered cars and tents.
No, sheltered people are people that are in, say, for example, in the Redondo Beach Pallet Shelter or the Torrance Pallet Shelter, or they could be in some emergency transitional shelter. Those would be considered sheltered folks, not people on cars and tents.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I saw that statistic on the slide. All right, very good. Thank you.
Any other question? Thank you, Ronson. Now with our federal representatives, I guess one of the questions would be, and I think it was posed, what is being done on the federal level to address homelessness? Has anyone have any information regarding that?
Want to just go to the first speaker and then maybe they can.
Would you like me to start?
Jeanette's first on the list.
That's me.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, good morning. My name is Jeanette Christian. For those who have not met me, I'm with Senator Feinstein's office. I'm a policy advisor. And before we go into homelessness, just wanted to chat about the Senate. It returned to session this week, and we're in our usual business of confirming judges and marking up some appropriation bills finally. We're starting with the NDAA, and hopefully we'll get some of those amendments through and pass before the August recess. Regarding homelessness, though, we're really disappointed to see the results go up this year. We have a legislation to address this. It's S-24, which is the Fighting Homelessness Through Services and Housing Act. And this bill appropriates $1 billion in funding for cities and counties to provide them with housing and services. It's a pair up with the Housing First model in mind. And there's various services like mental health, drug, substance abuse, et cetera, that will be a part of this program. I think these bills are going to have a hard time making it through this session, just to be honest. I think there's not a lot of Republican support in housing and homelessness right now. And so something we're trying to do and cut through some red tape with federal agencies by working on kind of the different issues like veteran AMI or raising the project-based voucher cap. I think there's different ways that we can work with HUD, with the VA, and with the Interagency Council on Homelessness to solve homelessness that doesn't necessarily require legislation. Writing letters, I think there's a few different ways that we're able to help. I think the good news for the Los Angeles is the Biden administration just appointed 2 people, federal liaisons to work with the city of Los Angeles and California. And they're staffing up right now. And that's an interagency of 18 federal agencies that are working to see what's going on in these areas and be able to cut the red tape and just dedicate some specific federal resources to the issue. So I think that's something that we can look forward to and definitely partner on. Do you have any questions on federal and housing and homelessness before I move on?
Anyone have any additional questions? Or you can continue.
I know we had a question about climate change, and I do think last year we did pass historically the Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed into law. And I can go and I can provide Jackie or Natalie some of the details. I think you all know about that bill, but we're seeing that trickle down kind of this year with the different grant programs. A lot of the cities are applying to them. So we're always willing and happy to help support that. If you wanted to send us some letters of support, we're happy to write them. But in the Inflation Reduction Act, we had the Affordable EVs for Working Families Act, which provides a tax credit up to $4,000 for middle and low income individuals who buy a used electric vehicle. And we also have the West Coast Ocean Protection Act, which bans offshore oil and gas drilling off the coast. Those are just 2 I wanted to highlight, and I can go on, but I want to leave room. I know there's a lot of other updates. And yeah, but if you have any other questions, or if there's any of your cities want to work with the federal agencies or LASA or any specific fixes in your area that require any of the federal agencies, happy to intervene or chat with them, and we can discuss ways that maybe don't look like huge legislation to help with housing and homelessness.
Jeanette.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madeline.
Hey everyone, it's Madeline. I'm here on behalf of Casey Hervey, our field representative. So just circling back to the presentation earlier on homelessness. The statistical breakdown of like the SPA 8 region, I think would be really useful for our legislative team back in DC. So we probably touch base after this meeting, hopefully contact with you on this like presentation and the statistics. As far as the housing realm goes, the Congresswoman introduced the Returning Home Act last April. The bill will basically provide resources to communities to secure housing for individuals returning from incarceration. LA County, 70% of adult unsheltered population has been involved with the criminal legal system. And this bill would help address our community's homelessness crisis and secure housing for some of the most vulnerable community members. So maybe having like, additionally looking at the amount of homelessness in the SPA region, especially those who have faced like incarceration, would be helpful in terms of like, updating that on the bill. In other like news, as far as climate change is concerned, the Congresswoman Garcia and Senator Padilla introduced the Clean Shipping Act of 2023. The act requires shipping fuels to gradually be cleaner in the next 15 years and have zero emissions by 2040. The emissions reductions will benefit communities, the Port of LA, Wilmington, San Pedro, parts of also, SPCOG. And if there's any more questions, I'll stop here until I move on to the next item. Are there any questions?
Seeing no questions. Thank you, Madeline.
Great. Yeah, I mean, as far as like the Congresswoman and what our office does, we also assist with federal infrastructure grants. So these are funding opportunities that are open for cities and others to apply. I'll just highlight a few. Department of Transportation, the MEGA grant. We have the EPA Solar for All grant, and these are things that if you are all interested, you can reach out to our office with. We have Sean, who is our lead field representative. He helps with receiving grants and applying for those. And lastly, Department of Energy, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. That's it as far as our legislative update goes. In other news, we have a community event coming up. If you're all interested, let people of your communities know. The Congresswoman is hosting a senior briefing on August 11th, and we'd be happy to share the flyers. Give our Long Beach field office a call. Yeah, and I'll answer any questions if there's any at all. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Madeline, you said you're having the senior briefing. What location is going to be at on the 11th of August?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Forgot to mention, it's gonna be at the Carson Community Center.
Can you send us a flyer to our senior services committee?
Senior services at cities of governance?
We have a special committee that we can send that flyer out to.
Great. I'll keep in contact with you after the meeting and let you know about the flyers. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy, you have a question for Madeline?
I do, thank you. The clean shipping fuels, was that for ocean-going vessels, trucks, or both?
It was especially focused for ocean-going vessels. So primarily, I'm creating a plan. So U.S. shipping companies all over the U.S. would have to, it's like a new regulation for U.S. shipping companies to meet the plan that would cut emissions for ports. But actually, now that you mentioned the, trucks and transportation, especially with that, I think that's a new perspective that we can bring back towards feedback. And that's something I'd be happy to share with the legislative team.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Madeline?
Is anybody talking?
That's all good for me.
She did briefly. Yeah, that's it. All righty. Karen?
Yes, hi everybody, happy Thursday. So before I go into our responses to the questions that were submitted, I do want to give a brief update. At the last legislative update, I talked about the different projects in the South Bay that the congressman is requesting in this year's community project funding cycle. Just a brief update on that. They're still sitting in the appropriations committee. And so we are expecting to hear back within the next month or two what the update on the final funding numbers might be for that before it gets, discussed further. So we're hoping to have an update on in about 2 months for all of the cities that requested funding. And I'm really excited to see what projects are going to be funded in the South Bay. And then in regard to what the congressman is doing on homelessness, first and foremost, the congressman is really passionate about tackling veteran homelessness, and we worked really closely with Senator Feinstein's office to pass legislation that would increase funding specifically for the West LA VA. He's also a co-sponsor of the PACT Act, which provides more than $350 million for housing developments at the West LA VA. And thanks to the work that the congressman and Senator Feinstein did, the West LA VA campus now has more than 200 supporting housing units that opened this year. And they recently broke ground for another 300 housing units. We're really excited about that. Additionally, the congressman, he introduced the Fighting Homelessness Through Services and Housing Act, which seeks to address the root cause of homelessness by authorizing a $1 billion annual fund for the next 5 years to support housing models that provide comprehensive services for those in need. He's also introduced the Prevent Evictions Act, which creates a grant programs for states, local governments, tribal governments, and other public or nonprofit entities to establish or administer landlord-tenant mediation programs. And then in addition to that, he's also introduced the Prevent Homelessness Act, which would establish a $500 million housing stabilization fund to help Americans that are most at risk of homelessness. And he's also introduced the Housing for All Act, which would invest nearly $532 billion over the next 10 years to address affordable housing shortages and homelessness risk. in regards to the congressman's work on climate change and extreme weather. The congressman is a co-sponsor of the Climate Solutions Act, which is one of the most aggressive bills to tackle climate change at the national level. So that legislation establishes a national renewable energy standard and, would hopefully drive us towards 100% renewable energy by 2035. And it also creates a stringent national energy efficiency standard to reduce usage and save consumers money. And the ultimate goal of it is to have, greenhouse gas emissions overall at a net zero by 2050. And then in addition to the Climate Solutions Act, he's also co-sponsored various bills to fight climate change. And, one of those is also the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And then he's also done a lot of work to support the electric vehicle industry. And that includes the $5 billion that is provided to states through the bipartisan infrastructure law to help deploy electric vehicle stations nationwide. And then I know you also asked about making broadband and high-speed internet an essential utility. And so I do want to state that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act includes the largest investment in broadband deployment and adoption in US history. And so, if anybody has questions about that act and how states or local governments could get funding for that, I'm happy to support anyone with finding that information. In terms of the pool of funds that's available for there, it's about $42.5 billion that was made available specifically for broadband deployment. It doesn't have an end date, and each state was set to receive at least $100 million in order to make broadband deployment possible. So, we're more than happy to help folks locate that funding and see how you could apply to make broadband possible. But that's it on my end. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? By way of Zoom? Any questions here in the office? We just really quiet today. I wasn't gonna bite you. Okay. Thank you for that, Karen. Good information, very thorough, but I'm interested in the broadband funding made available and wanted to get connected and regarding how we can get that for the South Bay area. So additional funding.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to follow up with you on the information for that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. So next on the agenda is state representatives and perspective from the Capitol, priorities in our district, and who do we have? Jasmine, you still here?
Hi, yes, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's enjoying their summer so far. My name is Jasmine Leon Guerrero, and I'm District Representative for State Senator Stephen Bradford. I'm going to quickly go over some legislative updates, and I'm only going to focus on legislation that's business related. So SB 51, that's the cannabis provisional licenses for local equity applicants. This did pass the Assembly Public Safety Committee, so we're happy about that. And again, this bill will remove one of the barriers of social equity cannabis entrepreneurs have by allowing for the issuance of provisional licenses while they wait for the regular licenses. And this is important because there isn't enough diversity in the industry and it doesn't represent California as a whole. And so we need more of that, and this will help that. And this requires a 2/3 vote because this is an urgency bill. And SB 512, it's cannabis tax on tax. So this is still waiting to be heard in the Rev and Tax Committee in the Assembly. And this bill would omit unnecessary taxes. For example, gross product amount should not be included in any other fees like delivery fees. So they're basically taxing the tax on tax, and we're trying to keep that from happening so that we won't have any under the table businesses anymore, and we'll keep everything straight. And SB 700, this is the employment discrimination for cannabis use. And this did pass the Judiciary Committee, and it was re-referred to appropriations. Again, this would prohibit an employer from inquiring about an applicant's prior use of cannabis as a condition to their employment. So I'm going to stop there. That's the legislative update I have for business related bills. And I'm going to touch on your your questions. So the one on homelessness. So the past few weeks, the legislature advanced several bills to address homelessness by streamlining approval of certain housing projects. And so this makes building affordable housing easier for faith-based institutions, nonprofit universities, as well as plans for development of social housing projects. And in the 2023-24 budget, the legislature approved $1 billion in the HAP, or the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Funding. And this supports local efforts to reduce and prevent homelessness. And they announced their intent to fund another year. So that's a good start. And as far as climate change, so our plan is to continue the progress towards 100% renewable energy, but not at the expense of Californians, right? So our methods have to be well thought out and with little injury as possible to our constituents. So some of these methods, let me see, some of these methods are increase solar and wind projects, update new and existing buildings for more efficient technologies, invest in research for better battery and larger long-term energy storage, convert transportation to clean energy, so that we can save the air that we breathe, focus on natural solutions that conserve biodiversity. And there are a bunch of other budget allocations that we had. Namely, I just want to mention $436 million to support communities at risk of flooding. And on the other end of that, $649 million for extreme heat projects, which we are feeling now in the summer, right? And so the internet as a utility. So as I'm sure everyone knows, people rely on the internet for connection for work, school, and telehealth and all that. And regulation would allow for enforcement of necessary functions. But at the same time, reclassifying it as a utility could stifle competition and destabilize pricing and reduce, the overall investment in the broadband industry. So we have to keep that in mind when thinking about converting internet as a utility. And Assembly Member Wood introduced a bill to make broadband a utility. That was AB 1714. And it was never heard in the Assembly Communications community. So something to, we can always address later, but just keep that in mind. And also existing federal law gives the FCC authority to determine the extent to which broadband is more strictly regulated as utility or an information service. And if it's that, then it cannot be regulated as utility. And since the FCC still classifies broadband as an information service, then states are likely prevented from classifying broadband as a utility. And I know I was told that there was some litigation on this issue. It's made states' ability to establish certain requirements more clear, but mostly states can't reclassify a service as a utility if the FCC has already said it's not a utility. Anyway, so going to the RHNA reform, the senator is always open to any reform that's serious about addressing our homeless shortage and combating homelessness. Let's see, the topic on 2024 General Assembly. I think reparations could be a topic maybe. The senator actually is on the Reparations Task Force Committee. The Reparations Task Force. And the last meeting was on June 29th of last month, and they just came out with their report on the June 30th. And, this report does a great job of exposing racial discrimination practices, shining light on it, and again, showing the continual effects of slavery all the way up to until today. So the senator is hoping to shape legislation that will go forward, and we'll be introducing legislation no later than 2024. This is the senator's last term coming up, or this is his last term, so he'll be doing as much as he can before he leaves. And as you know, California can very well be the test case and the blueprint for what should be done in this nation. So regarding this issue, but as always, feel free to call our office with any feedback that you have on reparations, and we'd appreciate it. I also wanted to quickly share an upcoming event of ours. It's our back to school event. It's open to everyone in the 35th Senate District, but we're not going to check IDs. So open to everyone. It's on August 5th on Cal State Dominguez Hills. That's a Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3. let's see, we're giving away free school supplies and backpacks, but students must be present to receive backpacks. You can't just say you have 10 kids and get 10 backpacks. Feel free to call our office for information, and I'll send Natalie, we have English and Spanish flyers and an Eventbrite page. I'll send Natalie that and also put it on the chat. But we'll have a resource fair, which includes little activities and STEAM activities from Home Depot, McDonald's, Boys and Girls Club. The LA County Library is going to do their book giveaway. Disney, we're also partnering with Disney, which is really exciting, and they're giving away tote bags full of giveaways and journals and books. And we'll have free haircuts and braids, dental screenings, vision screenings, school immunizations. We'll have a DJ. We'll have an anti-bullying workshop. There's going to be free lunch for the kids. The Natural History Museum, Mobile Museum will be there, and the Clippers will have a little pop-up basketball thing. So that's it for me. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I wanted to let you know that there's a bill, AB 41, that's in the Senate Energy Committee. And we were informed that there might be amendments that Senator Bradford might even be bringing, I don't know, that would, it would sort of take away some of the transparency equity in that bill. It has to do with broadband. The bill is actually called got it here and I just checked my screen. The bill is called the Telecommunications Digital Equity in Video Franchising Act of 2023. Our steering committee discussed it. We will be bringing it to the board to say that we would oppose those amendments that are being suggested. So please let the senator know we will be sending a letter, and we hope the bill will stay as it was written.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll certainly let them know.
Any other questions?
I had a question, Jasmine. How is the Supreme Court affirmative action ruling going to affect the reparations stuff?
Yeah, so that's something the California Legislative Black Caucus is taking very seriously. They're in the works of trying to figure out how to, I mean, I don't want to say circumvent it, but doing as much as they can to try and keep diversity in our colleges, and also something. So the California Legislative Black Caucus is going to kind of lead the way for all of the Reparations Task Force report recommendations. So yes, thanks for that question. That's something that they're really going to look into and try and, like I said, keep the diversity in the schools, knowing that, you know, we have this new limitation.
And then just a second question. I know there was some concern about the supply chain emergency declaration and how that affected some lots in the district. Any updates on that in terms of I know there were like trailers being placed in neighborhoods that wasn't necessarily welcome, and so I was just wondering if there's any updates on that.
No, thanks for that question. So actually that was completely cleared. We're working with Caltrans in the county, and that was completely cleared. I want to say beginning of this year, and the community is happy about it. We were able to spark up that conversation between the community and the county and Caltrans. So that's completely cleared, but there was an update that there was some illegal dumping. Some people were dumping huge piles of dirt there. And so we were informed about that, and that for community, we're like, if it's not one thing, then it's the other. So we're really trying to make sure that we're putting up fences there, and they did deploy CHP so that, they can look at the area to make sure that nothing else is going on in that area. But yeah, thanks for that question.
Yeah, I think we'd like to reach out at some point to your office to talk about those properties and see what we can do about them. Maybe make them, productive, for the community.
Sure, of course. Yes, be very supportive of that.
Jasmine and Brandy has a question.
Hi, thanks. Jasmine, regarding the back to school event, is there still room for exhibitors for the resource fair? How could I possibly get connected with that?
So I'm actually the coordinator for that. You can reach out to me. Yeah, I tried to cut it off on the 30th. We have limited as far as tents and chairs and tables. So if you could provide your own, we can try and squeeze you in. But yeah, reach out to me. I'll put out my email on the bottom, and then you reach out to me with your information. Thanks so much, Brandy. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jasmine. Next, Olena.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. The best part about going second is that Jasmine covered most of the things I was going to cover. So thank you, Jasmine, for making my my speech a little shorter. I appreciate it as always. I wanted to start this off with a bit of an update, as I'm sure most of you have heard about the Rolling Hills Estates landslide that started or first reported on Saturday late at night. As of yesterday, there are 17 homes that have been evacuated. There are additional homes that have been evacuated due to a sewer line break, not because they are in danger of falling, but because that area is not inhabitable at this moment. That area has shifted about 20 feet in 24 hours. So there is a large amount of shifting still occurring, though it has slowed since it first started. Senator Allen will be up there today, along with Supervisor Hahn. We've also invited Assemblymember Mert Suchi to join us to tour the site and speak to LA County Fire and such. I don't know if anyone from Rolling Hills Estates is still on the call, but I did want to thank the government of Rolling Hills Estates City for their response, and of course the county officials who are doing so much to respond with County Fire, and also the utility companies for responding so quickly to our residents in that area. They shut off the power, gas, water as quickly as they could to help mitigate any damage that might occur from that. So thank you to everyone that's involved. The state is going to be looking through Cal OES about how we can be assisting in that disaster zone, really. So just a little update about that. As far as a legislative update, I do have a few points that I wanted to make. There is a new select committee that Senator Allen is now sitting on. That is the Select Committee on Infrastructure Streamlining and Workforce Equity. Senator McGuire does sit as chair on that committee. I think that brings us up to about 10 committees. So Senator Allen is quite busy at this time. Additionally, I do have a few bills that have been moved to two-year bills. There are three bills, which are SB 285, which is our cannabis retail bill that was run for the city of West Hollywood, which would have allowed dispensaries to serve non-cannabis foods on property. Additionally, there's SB 615, which is our vehicle traction batteries bill, and also SB 709, which is our low carbon fuel standard regulations for biogas derived from livestock. So those have been moved to 2 years. They're not dead. We just want to work on them a little bit more, especially with SB 615. We think there's a little bit more that we can do there. I do have a few questions here. As I said, Jasmine answered most of them, so I don't feel a need to really go into too much of them. I think mostly I want to touch on the question of what are your priorities to address climate change and the extreme weather events. I think most people here know that Senator Allen's pillar of his legislative agenda is climate change. We've done a plethora of bills on this subject. We have SB 1205, which is our climate informed water permitting bill, SB 44, which is our CEQA review for green transit projects bill. We have SB 83, which is our innovative financing for communities threatened by sea level rise. That's particularly important. In our district, we cover a lot of the coastline in LA County. And is a particularly interesting bill given the landslide situation in Rolling Hills Estates. We are looking at bringing that back in this regard. We also have SB 45, which is our climate resiliency bond, SB 682, climate stabilization. But I mean, the story is we have a lot of bills on climate change and the reaction to the changing climate events. We cannot stop climate change. It is happening. So what we're looking at is how we can address the changes that are inevitably going to happen. That is kind of the way that we are attacking this. And I think everything else has been pretty well answered by Jasmine. So if there's any other questions, feel free to ask me. As a little visual, I did print out a few pages of the homelessness bills from the state and Assembly. I think it's very clear that there's been a lot of legislating on this topic at the state level, as in addition to the ever-present funding that we give our local municipalities to address homelessness on their home turf. So with that, I will end my presentation.
Carolina, I think one of the questions that I know from the South Bay perspective is addressing the RHNA housing and what has been done on his level in addressing the RHNA housing, because many of our cities are built out and the numbers that have been given to many of these cities are not doable because based upon the build out. So what have you done to address those concerns?
So we've been in conversations with the governor's office on that for a while now, especially because that was brought up to us by Redondo Beach in the last couple of years. So that's been on our radar, and that's something that we're tackling in our discussions with the higher ups, especially the governor's office. I think this is something that's kind of persisted in the last couple of years. We saw SB 9 and 10. There's been a lot of bills that have come down from the state that would regulate housing throughout the state that just don't apply very well to our district. We have, Palos Verdes Peninsula, which is a very rural community where building fourplexes in the middle of nowhere is not really going to serve the purpose that Senator Wiener wanted. We have a lot of areas that are already built up, like you said. So this is something that we've been having a conversation about for the last couple of years. We've had it with the COG as well, and we will continue to do so. But I will say, if there's something that comes up year after year and you have particular concerns, please reach out to us with the numbers, because if we don't have those, we can really only advocate so much.
Olena, we've been obviously expressing our concern about RHNA reform and the fact that RHNA itself should just be, somebody should, look at how it's been calculated.
Yes.
And do you sense, I know you say you're talking to the governor, do you sense any movement? Is there any openness to actually looking at it?
I think there's openness for sure, but they have to be very careful about how they approach this, because certain areas definitely do have more property that they can develop, while others don't. So they have to find an equitable and fair way to address that. And I just don't think they figured that out yet.
Okay, Don, you had a question?
I did. Thank you, Cedric. So thank you for mentioning about the peninsula and how housing is pretty difficult for us as a built-up city as well. Given the recent tragedy that's happened in Rolling Hills Estates, and given that landslides are, even ones that haven't been known, have now occurring, I wonder if this could be further evidence that these RHNA numbers and the housing requirements are something that need to be reconsidered all throughout the state, and specifically in the South Bay that's represented by the senator.
Yeah, I wouldn't say all throughout the state. That's not part of the conversation. There's definitely lots of part of the states that can be developed with housing. So that's a non-starter. But it's kind of like you have a bug in our office, John, because we're definitely entertaining that conversation. And this has been the senator's kind of talking point for a while about building out in areas that shouldn't be built in. We're talking about high wildfire risk places. We're talking about places right on the coast. We're talking about places right, on hillsides like Rolling Hills Estates. There's certain places that just don't need to be built up. As Senator Allen likes to say, we don't need to build in the WUI. So this is something we've been pushing legislatively. We have not been successful in it thus far, but it has been a legislative priority that we've continued to attack that way. But with our bill SB 83, which is our revolving loan for communities under threat of sea level rise, that did not pass the Senate last time we introduced it. So we're thinking that this might be an opportunity to revisit that conversation.
Oh, thank you. And I do not have a bug in your office.
Well, would you tell us if you did, John?
I would not tell you.
No. Any other questions? Thank you, Olena.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Becky.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to start off with letting you know the state budget reserve are actually estimated at $37.8 billion, contrary to general belief that this is actually the biggest reserve of any state in U.S. history. However, the June 2022 state budget package really anticipated declining revenues in this year, but the actual revenue decline has been greater than that projection. So we want to make sure that the budget remains, healthy, and because of continuing significant uncertainties about economy, tax revenues, the administration is going to delay some of the one-time spending items, permitting in the legislature to, in case, in the coming month, it gets even worse. The revenue declines situation gets even worse. But, there's a few things that the governor and the state legislature continues to focus on, which is education, public assistance. For example, it makes the temporary 10% CalWORKs cash assistance grant increase a more permanent status beginning 2024. On healthcare, it increases Medi-Cal provider rates, lowers co-pays and deductibles for Cover California insurance plans, to even transit, which provides a $5.1 billion over 3 years in temporary funding to help transit agencies invest in capital and improve their financial stability. On the front of housing and homelessness, the budget does provide $3 billion in total for housing and homelessness related expenditures, and also approves student housing projects to serve more than 4,100 more students. And on that, the Assembly member, as also has the AB 67 homeless court pilot program, and giving you an update on the status of that is currently, actually, unfortunately, it was held. The hearing was held yesterday at the Senate. 2 days ago, Senate Public Safety. It is due pass, and we referred to the Committee on Appropriations. So we're holding out for that, having hopes. Business related would be the AB 416 SOCHU bill. It was at the end of June, it was under Senate Appropriations. On the 28th of June, it was in Senate analysis. And then it's going under the third reading. So we have hopes that it will go through. Also, a major amend is AB 899, the toxic baby formula bill. It was in the Senate Environment Quality Committee. However, language were changed to address to all baby food, not just baby formula. And as you can imagine, we're getting a lot more opposition now from baby food manufacturers, in addition to what we already have. So, so I'll provide update on that as we go along. We do have a town hall, community town hall this weekend, this Saturday, the 15th. At Manhattan Beach Library, and I have flyers to share. I'll follow up with that. Oh, and Jimmy from my office is holding it up. So we welcome you to join us. It will start from 10 o'clock in the morning to 11:30. And our next one in August 19th, we're having another town hall at the Peninsula Center Library. Same time of the day, which is 10 to 11:30. And you can RSVP on our website. And I do want to make another announcement that I will be leaving the Assembly member's office. And my last day will be Friday, the 21st. And thank you for everybody's support and friendship. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve the South Bay on behalf of the Assembly member. On the call today is Jimmy Gao and also Eric Bonce-Furlos, and you have met them before, and they will continue representing you and the Assembly member in South Bay moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to see you go, Becky, but Godspeed and making sure, hey, everything works out for you as you move on. And Jimmy, hey, I guess you got to step up, huh? Any questions, anybody? None. Hearing none. Again, thank you, Becky.
Thank you, sir.
Is Lizette on the call? I didn't see her when she pulled. No one. No Lizette. I know Brandon.
I'm here.
Back in the back.
I'm in the back. Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Stance. I'm with Assemblywoman Tina McKenna's office. Pleasure to see you all. I have today with us our intern is in our office, Jackie Moore. She's a student at LMU. And she plays volleyball and she's interning in our office for the month. And so she's been great. And unfortunately, she has followed me around, but it's okay. She's been doing it so far. Like my like my dear friend Alina stated and Jasmine already stated, you know, the good thing about not going second to last is going last. And so I kind of get to freestyle a little bit and bounce around on what I'm going to talk about, but also addressing your questions. I want to circle with two people first. I didn't get your name, sir, but if you could tell me your name, I will follow up with you in regards to the shipping containers that you spoke with Jasmine earlier. I've been working really closely with the West Athens Task Force that is really centered around where those communities are being affected. Oh, absolutely. Here's my card as well. Thank you. Thank you. If you follow up with me, I could address all the issues that you might have. I've been going to those meetings regularly. Actually, the CEO of the task force just called me right now during this meeting, stating what their plans that they would like to work with people that want to be invested in the property, what they would like to see in their own community as far as with those grounds, the dumping. We've had the owner of that property attend those meetings and stated what his plans are. So we just want to have a collaborative effort of things that go on in our district. So whatever questions you might have, please feel free to reach out to me in my office and we can talk about that further. Brandy, I know you stated about attending the Senator's backpack giveaway, but if you can't make that, you can come to ours. So we are having a backpack giveaway on August 19th. We are partnering with Councilwoman Dion Falk in Inglewood. It will be our second annual at the same location, and that is in the Imperial Crenshaw Shopping Center. Right on the side of Rite Aid, it's like an alleyway where we'll have the vendors walk through. We have different health care services such as Health Net. We have America's Best doing vision exam. We have California Dental Association doing oral exams. We also have participation from the Rams and the Clippers. We have free haircuts, all the great things, along with giving away 1,000 backpacks. And so if you want to reach out to me, I'll find a way to get you my information, Brandy. Put it in chat. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll find a way to reach out to you. And you can reach out to our office. If you can't get with the senator's office, you can always attend our event. We can make space for you. So addressing some of your questions, like Alina and Jasmine already stated, there's been $1 billion into the general fund addressing housing. I know we stated that there's been a lot of bills. I'll just name a few, starting with our own AB 1418, which would shut down housing ordinance that evict tenants from their homes due to police activity. It has bipartisan support and also with no opposition. As the Assemblywoman has stated before, with our housing climate and, you know, the strenuous, stress that we've been dealing with that, we don't want to add to the problem as far as kicking people out of their homes that maybe just have a dispute or something like that could be settled and we could be able to keep them in their homes and not add to the homelessness issue. And we have several other bills that address this issue. I'll just name a few. AB 86, that's Joan Sawyer, that's going to help create a statewide homeless coordinator to tackle some of the issues. AB 1377 by Assemblymember Friedman. Those that are applying for such of the services as far as assistance, prevention programs, that they actually have to report this data to see what we're doing as far as the housing, if it's working, if it's not, whatever the case may be. That's a great bill that we have. And we also have SB4, which the Assemblywoman is a co-author on, which is affordable housing developments on churches that have extra lots. We've noticed a lot in our community that these churches have large properties that aren't being used. And so we're looking to work with a lot of churches in our district to help address that as far as maybe building some housing on there to prevent the homelessness. I know another topic here was the arena. So I'll address that. I know the Assemblywoman has stated that she sees that the state and the Attorney General are willing to come to the table to try to work with our cities. Her goal is to just have a collaborative effort and hoping that we can come to the table to get some kind of resolution. So she is willing to work. She stated that the Attorney General has voiced the same sentiments. So that's what we are bringing to the table to answer that question. And then to answer the final question, what would focus would your office like to see for the General Assembly? For ours is just continue with housing and environmental issues. And so those are some of our two biggest topics that we would like to address. And yeah, that's my report. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer. If not, it's good to see all your lovely faces.
Any questions on Zoom?
Put your email in the chat.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you.
Saying none. Thank you, Brandon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Jeff, where are you at? I know you're somewhere around there.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear my name, so I was
Wait,
making
wait.
sure you were talking to me.
Before we get to Jeff, I'm sorry. I know you said you were last, but do we mind if we make him second to last? Updates from the assessor's office?
Oh.
Okay.
Want to jump in, sister?
Is that okay?
All right.
Sorry, I'm on double meetings, so I had to step out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning again, everyone. So first and foremost, our office has been keeping an eye on the situation in Rolling Hills Estates. Our office, what we can do on our end, we're providing all the homeowners with misfortune and calamity. It's an exemption for more than $10,000 when a property receives damage. So obviously there are 16 properties in damage. We're working with everybody to make sure all those homeowners receive that. It's good from the day that the occurrence happens until the property is rebuilt or refurbished. In this case, given that the properties have actually slid off their foundation and are no longer there, we're navigating that to see how we're going to go about that. Because they're probably going to they're not going to rebuild, they're going to move into new houses. So we're working with the supervisor's office to make sure that we keep an eye on that because there is potential for more damage in the area as the slide continues to move on. But on some legislative updates, we were working with Senator Kelly Ciarto on SCA 4, which was a constitutional amendment to reinstate Props 58 and Props 193. If you're not familiar with that, Props 58 and Props 193 were abolished by Prop 19. At the time, they allowed parents and grandparents to transfer their principal residence and its tax base, no value limit to their children with no formal reassessment. Right now with Prop 19, only a primary residence is allowed for a transfer and it's only in value up to $1 million. Anything above $1 million is reassessed at market value. Unfortunately, that died in Senate Governance and Finance, but we do have the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, which typically leads some of these efforts annually, year after year, to reinstate Props 58 and Props 193. They filed initiative with the Office of the Attorney General last month. It looks like starting next month that they will begin with the signature collecting. So we'll see how that goes. Additionally, we just closed last month, actually 2 weeks ago, our 2023 annual assessment roll. Back in May, we forecasted a 5% growth increase, which we estimate will bring about $2 trillion in property tax value to the county. We got our final numbers. We're still crunching it. Looks like it's going to be a little bit higher than 5%, maybe about 5.6, which is great in our book because that's any time we can have a higher assessment is great. So we will keep all of our partners down here in the South Bay informed once that formal assessment roll comes out. And lastly, I know everybody's pitching their fairs and everything that's going on. We're hosting a fair. It's not very close. It's in Van Nuys in September. We are looking to host annual quarterly resource fairs with our partners throughout the county. So we've gone to Huntington Park, we've gone to Temple City, now we're going to the Valley. If anybody down here is interested in hosting us in the South Bay, we would be more than happy to set up shop for our next one. So please just keep our office in the loop if you have any interest in partnering together.
Hey, quick question. Your office had a program called tax default properties for a while where there's these properties in tax default and cities or agencies can come and acquire those properties and maybe build affordable housing or parks, things like that. I heard it got put on hold. Any information on why and when it's going to be brought back?
I don't have any information on that. I mean, we do obviously track properties, that are government or parcel or defaulting. I can go back to the office and report back.
Okay, yeah, I sent Ian the email.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions by way of Zoom? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, you ready now?
Absolutely, yes. Good morning again, everyone. Jeff Kieran with the League of Cities. I just wanted to update everyone on a few things I'm working on. Earlier this week, I reached out to area city managers about SB 1186. This is a bill that was signed into law last year from Assemblymember Weiner that requires cities to allow for the delivery of medical cannabis I checked on the California Cannabis Control website, and actually there's just a handful of cities that currently allow that. They will be required to allow that by the beginning of next year. So I just reached out to those city managers to make sure that they're working on updating their codes. And I'm creating a little bit of a contact list so people can collaborate with each other on that effort. Legislatively, one of Cal City's sponsored pieces of legislation was just recently signed by the governor. That's SB 329 by Senator Dodd. That was a bill that allows for general law cities to adjust council member compensation for the first time since 1984. And that actually allows you to tie it to a little bit of inflation. So that's something we were happy to get the governor to sign. We believe that does help a larger array, spectrum of people to actually serve on city councils, especially given the 300% increase in cost of living since the last time that was adjusted. So something we wanted to let everyone know about. SB 423 by Senator Wiener is one of the biggest land use bills this year that Cal Cities is opposing. I watched the committee hearing in Assembly Natural Resources the other day. It almost got held up there. The California Coastal Commission is opposed to that as well. And it did eventually make it out of that committee with a number of amendments. So once those amendments are in print, we'll certainly take a look. I don't anticipate that would adjust our opposition to the measure at all. But obviously we do want to take a look at those. Those amendments will probably not be available until after the committee or the legislature goes to recess. Tomorrow is their last day for their summer recess. And then they come back for just another month of activity before they wrap up for the year. So we are going to be holding a legislative briefing for our members about the last 30 days of the legislature. I'm going to go ahead and drop a couple links to that and also to our August 3rd installation of officers here in the Los Angeles County Division. Rolling Hills Councilmember B. Derringer is set to become the LA County Division President. So we're excited about that as well. But I did just want to make mention also, Brandon mentioned SB 4, the COG has an opposed position on that bill. Cal City's position is support if amended. Our policy committee went to a support if amended bill, but essentially if you look at the amendments we're requesting, we are requesting that the legislature add in that all local zoning rules must be followed. So it's a very high bar to try to get a support position out of that bill, but that's the one that does the allows religious institutions to build housing on their lots. So I know the COG is opposed and Cal Cities is supporting it only if all local zoning laws are agreed to. So, but unfortunately that bill is still moving quite quickly through the legislature. So that's all I have for you this morning, unless there are any questions for me.
Any questions for Jeff? Saying none. Thank you, Jeff. We got a little bit of time. I know we got two other individuals that wanted to present. Randy, you want to give an update on AQMD?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I have three screens open here. I'm Brandy Keith. I'm with the South Coast AQMD Geographic Outreach Team, and I wanted to share with everyone that the agency recently received a multi-million-dollar contribution that will aid air quality efforts across the South Bay and all of Los Angeles. The agency was awarded about $76 million by the California State Transportation Agency for zero-emission projects that will help transform good movements in the San Pedro Bay corridor. So we will be using those funds in Cal STA's Port and Freight Infrastructure Program to demonstrate a first of its kind hydrogen fuel cell locomotive that will operate in and around Southern California. We'll also be installing 376 direct current fast chargers and 19 hydrogen refueling dispensers across 7 locations for the trucks used for the goods movement. I do have copies of our recent press release regarding this award in English and Spanish, and I'm happy to share them if you're interested, if you want to distribute them in your area to your constituents. I'll be putting my contact info in the chat. I'd also like to share that today at 1 p.m. we have an AQMP, or Air Quality Management Plan Advisory Group meeting. It'll be open to the public. Members of our staff will be providing updates on emissions inventories as well as stationary and mobile source control measures. The meeting will be available via Zoom, and I'll share the Zoom link in the chat as well. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the gentleman who shared about the Van Nuys event, but if you could please share your information in the chat, or if I could get your email, that would be great.
Oh, so my name's Ian, the representative from the assessor's office. My email is imay@assessor.lacounty.gov. I'll give you my business card, and you can request more information through my email. But it is happening on September 9th in Van Nuys. And yeah, if anyone has any questions regarding that, I'd be happy to answer them.
So it's going to be placed in the chat. So if anyone needs to look for it, it'll be in the chat. Anything else, Brandy?
That's it from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Any question?
Yeah. So, hi, Brandy. My name is Sergio with the Office of Councilmember Tim McCosker. I was wondering, what are the next steps on the ports ISR that you guys are proposing? Our office has some concerns on its impact on trade, its impact on goods movement, its impact on our economy. And so I just was wondering if you had a timeframe of what are the next steps in the development of that ISR?
Love it.
I will have to check with my staff on that matter. Can I get your contact info, and I'll be in contact with you to get you that information.
Sure.
I'll put it in the chat.
David will add it to the chat.
Be in the chat.
You have it?
Anybody misses any of the contact info, we should have it all here. So always contact us.
Any other questions? Jennifer?
Hi, good morning. Sorry,
did
I'm
that-
having some tech issues this morning. My camera is not working.
Oh,
Yes, are you calling on me for a quick update?
yes. I always want to get, I want to hear about the supervisor. Always.
Yeah, oh, thank you, yes. So as you know, the supervisor's been working hard on the Rolling Hills Estates land movement incident, and yesterday she committed $100,000 to assist the displaced residents with housing and even food or other incidentals. She'll be back out there today with Assemblymember Marisucci and Senator Allen. And I wanted to let you know she's having a town hall meeting in Rancho Palos Verdes on Monday at the Art Center from 5:30 to 7:30. She's been hearing a lot about, property crimes happening on the peninsula, whether it's these residential burglaries or retail theft, like the Ulta Beauty that constantly keeps getting hit up in Rolling Hills Estates. So she's bringing the sheriff to town to kind of give a situational update about this and educate people on ways to protect themselves. And it's also just going to be a good way for folks to meet the sheriff and get to know him a little and just hear from him. So those are kind of the main things right now. The big item at the board meeting on Tuesday was that the county accepted $320 million in state funding for the care court that will be launching in December. This is the one where folks can petition the court to help people with serious mental illness get the help they need. It is voluntary, but if people don't follow through with the plans for, whether it's medication or, other things that it can lead to conservatorship. So we're preparing for that, having the necessary beds and programs in place to accommodate that come December. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions by way of Zoom? Any questions here in the office? Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure, thank you.
Is there anyone here from Lorenthal's office? No one? Okay. Right, now we're at the point for any other comments or statements or announcements. We've been doing announcements all morning. So any new announcements for anybody? No, is that it? Any public comments? None, seeing none. Thanks everyone for being on this call, on this meeting. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, October the 12th. Looking forward to seeing all of you at that meeting, and thank you again for being at this meeting today.
Can I just say that we have good refreshments here and we'd love to see you in our office.
So we do have food. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Good job.
Eddie, you're legit. Time no see, yeah.